why don't we get started? This is Jim Jasper from South Metro Score out of Burnsville, and I want to thank you for joining today. Our presenter Ben has just been doing a terrific job of this whole series, and we've gotten a lot of just a lot of interest. So thank you so much. If you aren't familiar with Score, what Score is it's one of the largest or the largest volunteer organization for helping small businesses in the U.S. And we've been around since the early 60s. It's all volunteer. We're a part of the Small Business Administration, and we're all real committed to helping businesses both get started and also providing support along the way, thing that we can assist with. Out of the South Metro group, we've got almost 40 members covering a variety of backgrounds and experience and skills. And you can sign up for free mentoring anytime you'd want. All you got to do is go to the score.org website, and there's a great big button on there for Find a Mentor, and that'll put you in touch with us, and we can help you through whatever it is you're up to that you're trying to do. The other thing I just want to call your attention to real quickly is in addition to this workshop that Ben's going to do today, we also offer a number of workshops and classes, and those are also available out on our South Metro score.org website. So that's another website. It's just like the score.org, just you add South Metro to the beginning of the big word, and that'll get you to our website. You can browse through, see all the workshops that are available. We got a number of things coming up in April that we're doing a 4-part series on how to start your own business. So that's coming up, as well as just continuation of just a number of really good workshops like you're about to witness today. And for those of you that don't know Ben Tice, Ben with Skol has been kind enough to put this on. Ben has been running Skol for about 12 years, and he's got just a terrific background in how to really get up to speed with e-business and social media, use of Google, etc. And with that, I'll let Ben take it away. If you have any questions, just put those out in the chat, and Ben usually kind of monitors that as we're going. But if not, we can hit what's remaining at the end of the session. So with that, thank you very much, and go for it, Ben.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Jim. And thank you guys for tuning in today. And obviously want to say a special thank you to Score for having us again. It's we love partnering with Score to put on these great workshops. So just as a quick recap, my name is Ben Tice, owner and director of Skol Marketing. We work predominantly with a lot of small and local sized businesses with digital marketing. So web dev, SEO, SEM, which we'll be talking about here today, and social media. But my favorite part of my job is partnering with organizations like Score and other local organizations to really kind of put on these educational workshops to really kind of help you break down what are these topics, what's changing in these topics, what should you be doing if you're going to do this yourself, what should we be looking at, and really kind of introducing these topics, but also then giving us value that we can actually take away and do that and actually implement it. So with that said, just a couple housekeeping things. As Jim kind of alluded to, if you guys have any questions, if you want to throw them in the chat, I will try to do some of them during the presentation if they're applicable, or if I know that we're not going to answer them. But just do know that we will try to keep the majority of them to the end, just to kind of make sure we have the flow of the workshop going, as well as knowing, this is my second point, is this workshop is being recorded. I like to kind of tell you guys that for to know that you'll not only get a PDF copy of the presentation here today, but you'll also get a recorded copy. So know that you'll have 2 pieces of those to obviously help you, digest the information, refer back to the information going forward. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we can go ahead and get started. Okay, perfect. So you guys are all here today, and we're going to be talking about SEM, search engine marketing, and specifically Google Ads. So we're going to be kind of going into what is SEM. We're going to be looking at the different types of ad options. If we were to have this, conversation about 5 years ago, it'd be a lot different because we were limited, or just the, options just weren't there like they are today for the amount of things that we can actually advertise, and the different types of ads that we can run. We're then going to actually start getting into kind of the normal kind of text ads and setting up our account to get started. And we're also going to look at creating ads and accounts. So this is predominantly going to be Google. So it's called Google Ads right now, and we'll kind of get into that, but essentially it's the same thing as Google AdWords, just rebranded. And throughout the presentation, we're going to be going through some kind of tips and tricks and techniques on what you want to be looking at if you're going to decide to run ads for your products, your services, or your overall business. So the first thing is just understanding. So search engine marketing is, again, you could honestly say is maybe a relatively new term in that it's maybe a few years old, and really is, we don't necessarily call it PPC or pay-per-click anymore. We call it search engine marketing. The reason is we'll get into this and you can kind of see down here, there are a lot of different types of ads you can run now, and they're not all predicated on PPC or pay-per-click. The other reason that Google actually changed the, again, the word from Google AdWords is that you can even see some of the ad examples down here with videos or display ads. They're sometimes not even showing quote unquote words. So we'll kind of go through all of these, but really you can see that we can run display ads. We can do retargeting. We can advertise on YouTube. We can run Gmail ads. We can do Google Shopping ads, all within SEM and all underneath the account of our Google Ads. Now, kind of looking at some of the different ad types, again, we kind of looked at some of those just previously, but now going into specific, of these is we're going to look at these. So the first is going to be Google Ads. This is just the normal Google Ads. This is what, used to be called Google AdWords. And these are the most prominent, types of ads that you're going to see out there. These are going to be kind of the classic text ads. So like when we type in plumber and we actually see an ad at the top, these are the most ones that people kind of start out with because they're most applicable and they're most likely what people are used to, or the most broad kind of appeal. So these are going to be, again, very focused demographics. We're going to be able to go after, again, very specific keywords. We're going to be able to go into exactly, again, geographically where you want to put these, if that's just a radius around a location, if that's a whole state, country, continent, the world, whatever it may be. Also with Google Ads it's going to be very complex. So you're going to be able to control it down to every parameter on the keyword or every aspect of every ad or ad extension. It's, again, it's great to do that, but that also comes with, great power comes great responsibility, so to speak. It's the same kind of thing here. The more opportunity that we have to be able to control it, there's going to be a lot more work that kind of goes behind the scenes. And so this is what we're going to mainly be kind of talking about today, because this is kind of the essence of where all these other kind of accounts flow in from. It's a completely manual managed account. So, again, this will make more sense when I go to the next column over here. But really what we're kind of looking at here is this one's going to be full, again, you managing it. We're going to be able to do e-commerce. Now, again, if you want to, if after this presentation, you come away and go, okay, what Ben just talked about was a lot to kind of do. I don't know if I'm ready for that. What's kind of good, though, is there is a program called Google AdWords Express or Google Smart Campaigns. What these do is these are essentially kind of a scaled down or scaled back version of what we're going to be predominantly talking about here today. And it's essentially using Google's kind of artificial intelligence to run your campaigns. So you're not going to have as much control over it, or you're going to more or less have influence over it. So ideally, though, once you get going, Google Ads is where you kind of want to be, but it's also being realistic that if you maybe have a very localized business, you want to start dipping your toes into this and you want to start feeling out Google Ads, AdWords Express might be a really good way for you to kind of start with. And what's kind of nice is a lot of the strategy and everything that we're going to talk about today with building your ads, with doing keywords, with doing strategy along that is still going to be applicable. So it might be something that you want to kind of earmark to kind of check out. But I will say eventually you are going to want to try to get into the Google Ads because again, you're going to have full control over it. And that's going to be kind of the monster. And usually we're going to see a very higher ROI than using AdWords Express. But there are both of those programs that that you can obviously do. Now, some other ones that we're going to maybe kind of briefly talk about today, but that we're not going to go so far in depth is because, again, we're going to be focusing on kind of the text ads because that's kind of the main core. But another one to really highly consider and look at, depending on obviously your products or services, is looking at utilizing the display ad network. So here's kind of the interesting thing about the display ad network. So these are essentially going to be kind of billboard ads. So if you've ever gone to a website and you see just kind of an ad to the right, like a square or a banner at the top, or if you've ever played an app in a game and you see something at the bottom, those are all kind of banner or billboard ads. Well, now what's kind of cool about the difference between these two, though, is they're utilizing the same network. Essentially, what Google does is if you go to those sites like New York Times or something like that, is New York Times is essentially carving out space on their website and then selling that ad space to Google. Google then essentially resells it back to you to be able to kind of put ads there. So what display ads and the display ad network allows you to do is to target people a little bit more demographically or more interest based. Because obviously if I know, that my demographic likes to read New York Times because there's a certain person that does that, I can go ahead and target that. If I'm looking for a sports person, like a bunch of the, again, sports websites that I go for sports news have a lot of these. And you can kind of tell that they're kind of targeting me because they're going to say, hey, we want to be on a sports website because we want to go after people like them. But so pure Google display ads are just going to be billboard ads. So they're going to be very, again, high branding, very high awareness, but they're going to be kind of low conversions because again, think about it. Think about potentially like the last time that you kind of went to an unsolicited, again, kind of banner ad. But there is some value in getting in front of people and being able to get some of those impressions. Now, what's kind of cool about retargeting or remarketing on the right-hand side here, this is something that you all should take note of because this is a great thing to wrap around your Google ads and your text ads that we're going to get more into here in just a second. What Google retargeting does is it's the same thing as display ads and billboard ads, except the thing is that someone, in order to see these ads, has to do a trigger. And so, like, for instance, a trigger could be that they actually came through your Google ads. They maybe went to your website. Maybe they went to a certain page on your website. So you're almost vetting them a little bit, and then you're kind of following them around. This is, I'm sure all of us have felt this even if you didn't know what it was called. If you ever put something into your shopping cart, if you ever went to a website and then 2 days later, or potentially even 2 hours later, you're actually seeing a reminder of that. That's what Google retargeting or remarketing is, but it can be super powerful combined with running an ad campaign. Again, you can be as specific as you want. You could say anybody that comes to the site, bam, we want to do a retargeting, remarketing. Or if someone only comes in via an ad, now I want to actually target them because again, you're essentially vetting them. They came in through your ad, they did something on the site, and now you're following them around. This works really good if your product or service that you're selling is either A, high value, or like, for instance, high price, that it's not necessarily something that I'm going to go on and buy like for a pair of quick, cheap sunglasses. Or for instance, if it's a service that there's a lot of, either high, again, cost or a lot of kind of competition. So I'll give you a couple examples. Like I have a client, for instance, that does emergency ice dam removal. Retargeting, remarketing, not a good fit because if you're going to their site for emergency ice dam removal, you need to make a decision right now, and it doesn't matter 2 hours later or 2 days later. But if you're a divorce attorney, well, again, you're probably not, if you're looking for a divorce attorney with how intimate that service is and that decision is, you're probably not going to the first site and just deciding that, hey, I'm going to go with this person. You may do that, but as again, as the business, you may say, hey, I want to make sure that they remember me a few days later as they're trying to contemplate this decision. Or again, another example is if I'm selling these sunglasses, probably not a good idea to do retargeting just because they're probably so cheap. But if I'm selling a computer at $2,000 or, again, whatever it may be at a high price, I might kind of want to even follow them around, even if it's $50, $100, $200. You can kind of just see, and obviously you'll have to kind of apply this to your business, but hopefully that gives you kind of an idea of looking at this. Most of our products or services probably have some competition or probably have some type of decision-making process that would, again, have remarketing or retargeting be beneficial. And so it really is something you can do this, like I said, separately on its own, where anybody that comes to the website or whatever, or you can attach it to other campaigns like your text ads and actually start vetting them further than that. So super powerful and something to really kind of look at when we start talking about Google retargeting and remarketing ads. Okay, a couple other different ones that you'll kind of see. So another one is YouTube ads. So if you have videos or maybe you want to create a video, you can actually be able to, again, run that video there. You can also run a little bit more kind of static ads or suggested videos and those types of ads as well. And those will appear on YouTube. Where YouTube can kind of be, come in handy is this is probably the #1 Google platform that you're going to be able to really get into the nitty-gritty of the demographics. Meaning, like, for instance, this is going to be very similar to how you would advertise on social media, because as I'm sure some of us know, or most of us know, is that when you're on social media and you like a post, you comment, you share this, you like this page, is Facebook and Instagram are creating kind of a profile or an avatar of you. They're tracking all of that to understand what you like, what you don't like. Well, the same thing can kind of be done with YouTube when we start watching different videos and what that content is. So a lot of times this is going to be kind of impression-based marketing. This is if you've utilized YouTube, these are ads that a lot of times you see right before. It's a lot of times you get 5 seconds and someone can then skip it or whatnot. Sometimes they're longer as well. It kind of goes with some of the parameters. But really it gets into that you can do videos as well as other type of marketing on YouTube, even some banner type kind of ads as well on there, but they're predominantly going to be kind of videos or suggested videos on YouTube, but we're targeting them just from a little bit different way. It's not so much what they're searching for. It's kind of a little bit of what makes them up and what makes up their likes from their interest of viewing. Also, Google Shopping is, for instance, is a shopping kind of platform. This also, if you've ever searched for a product and you see a ribbon at the top of the, again, search result with actual visual pictures of an actual product where I could click and actually buy that with prices, that's essentially the Google Shopping ribbon. There's also a complete separate tab and website for Google Shopping as well. This is obviously just pulling in different listings from across the web. If I'm looking for a purple backpack, I can be able to kind of do that, and it's going to try and find me all the purple backpacks on there with pictures and prices and shipping and all that kind of cool information right there. Whereas if I were to do that on normal Google, obviously I don't get those pictures, I don't get those pricings normally, and I have to actually kind of go into those. What's super, again, cool about Google Shopping is a couple things. One is just the obvious here is if you're not selling actual products, this isn't going to be for you. This is only for people that are selling products. But just last year, one thing for those people that are selling products and are doing e-commerce, really look into Google Shopping ads because they now have a free version. So they're still selling, again, premium ad space at the top of, again, Google search or at the top of Google Shopping, but they have now allowed for the bottom portion, or if people are searching further into Google Shopping, they're actually allowing those listings to actually be listed free of charge. This is something that they came out with because of COVID last year and to kind of be able to do it. If you want to think about what they're doing is they're pretty much doing what we see on Google.com. When you search for a plumber on Google.com, a lot of times you see ads at the top. And then if you scroll down, you see the maps or you see your normal organic listings. The same thing is happening here with Google Shopping. But a lot of people I'm finding don't really realize that if you have it, you can actually be listed for free. So something to kind of check out if you do have e-commerce or selling products, to not only look at the advertising opportunities on Google Shopping, but to also then look at the free opportunity that Google just announced last year. And the last one here is Google Guaranteed. This is essentially going to be for service or home trades or, kind of the trades industries. So this is going to be almost like Google's version of Angie's List. You literally have to apply for this. You have to submit information like your social security number. You have to submit as the user, again, or as the provider, not an actual searcher. But, again, as the business owner, you have to supply this information, your licensing information, your insurance information, because what what Google essentially, what this program does is this allows a user, if they're searching for a roofer, for instance, and something goes haywire, Google actually has, again, their back, and kind of like eBay or PayPal and some of those guarantees can actually refund them money if they go through this program. So obviously Google, if you're going to join this program, they want to make sure that you are legit and kind of follow some of those kind of guidelines. So Google Guaranteed, though, can be a great program. Again, if you're in the trades industries and you're doing some of those home services like plumber, roofer, painter, those types of things. Another kind of cool platform that's going to be different than some of these other ones we've been talking about already. Okay, so with that said, is your head already might be spinning just a little bit, knowing that there's so many more options that we just, again, we just kind of essentially talked about. We just talked about, let's see, like 7 different options that you can essentially, again, advertise on. The biggest thing to kind of realize, though, is the main premise of Google. Now, again, there's some difference there through some of those that we talked about, but really the main philosophical difference and kind of core of Google Ads is that traditional, again, advertising is you were trying to look for these people. You were going to them, you were, again, trying to find them. Now, really what it does is it puts the magnifying glass into the user's hands, and you're trying to target people that are actively searching for something that you're related to, a certain product, a certain service, a certain solution that you may solve. That's really kind of the main kind of core essence of what Google Ads is we now are putting the magnifying glass into the consumer or the user's hand, and now we're trying to run ads off of that instead of trying to find them or people that would be interested. So really what comes with that, though, is really kind of high value type of advertising models. Again, like, people, I get asked a lot of times, like, well, Ben, our, again, our Google ads, our pay-per-click ads, are again, these types of ads actually worth it? Do they work? And a couple things that I kind of tell people is, A, this is actually the #1 source of how Google/Alphabet actually makes their money. And 2 is, here's the other thing too, is what's kind of nice is you actually don't, again, actually pay for showing up. You only get charged when someone clicks on your ads. Now, again, these are for the classic pay-per-click ones that we're going to start to get into here today a little bit kind of further. Why that's valuable too is because I also hear a lot of times people saying, well, Ben, why would I run those ads for there? Because I never click on them. Again, I know that they're ads and I scroll right by them. And again, that's legit, but there's a ton of people that actually do click on those. And for someone like you, that if you do scroll by them, well, that's great. Well, then you didn't get charged as the business to market to that person. They just decided to scroll by. To be honest with you, sometimes me, even personally as a user, I even look at the ads sometimes even specifically first, because those people are actually saying that I want to show the person that's typing this exact same phrase, and I want to run an ad on it. And so sometimes I like to kind of see what those ads are, because I've even had sometimes better success finding them in ads than organic search results. But again, it goes back to, you're going to have a flow of different users. You're going to have different users doing different types of things. So this is why, for instance, SEO is important to continue to do. But if we lay on, SEM and PPC like this, it's important to realize that, again, you're only getting charged for when someone clicks on it. So, again, it doesn't matter if you don't click on it or if someone else doesn't, we're going to be able to kind of have that. The other thing about with SEO too, and we'll get into this a little bit later, is that, having better SEO is going to influence your ads. It's a one-way street though. So I just like to kind of keep kind of talking about that, as well as your quality score. Really, if you want to think about what quality score is, and we'll talk about that here throughout the presentation as well, is a quality score is almost going to be kind of your ranking of your relationship with Google Ads. So the higher your ranking with Google Ads internally, it's going to obviously just benefit you. They're just going to, it's out of 10. A lot of time, again, it's per, there's a lot of things that go into it. We'll kind of talk about this, but if you use a lot of the strategies that we're talking about here today, it's going to set you on the right path to have a high quality score, i.e. have a high relationship with Google, which can actually help your ads rank higher for less amount of money. So a higher ROI. Also, and you guys may have known this or see this if you've obviously scrolled past ads, but now there is just a black symbol or black ads, just text that sits right next to all these. It used to be a solid green, then it was a, again, a green outlined one. Now they moved it to black. And if you go way back in the day, they even had like all of the ad kind of stuff had a big, blue or red or green background. They really called them out. Really what they're doing is they're trying to hide ads further and further. Obviously, it's great as a marketer because they're not as in people's faces saying this is an ad, but legally and obviously they want to make sure that people know that they're ads, but they are making them a little bit more conspicuous. Okay, so a couple things now when we start looking at, okay, Ben, let's start creating a Google Ads account. So the first thing to kind of know when you start looking at this, there's a few things to kind of know and a few settings to kind of at least kind of check the boxes or at least kind of know about. So the first is looking at either doing a search network only or a search network with display select campaign. So what these essentially mean is search network only is really going to honestly predominantly be you're just going to be showing up on google.com and again just again working with their search engine. If you decide to do search network with display select, they've essentially have Google has other partners that they will display your ads on as well. If you want my honest opinion, if you're kind of just starting this out, a lot of times I will say actually search network only is something I like to try to get to or to kind of do first, because again, we start to sometimes see the value isn't always there for search network with display select. This also kind of depends if you're going to be running display ads and retargeting ads. If you're going to be running some of those, then you might want to try the display select. But if you're only going to be running text ads right now and doing that, I would recommend actually just starting with search network only and almost forcing Google to kind of say, hey, I just predominantly want to be on google.com. And so, again, that's usually where we start to see the higher value overall with there, because again, you're kind of forcing Google to be on there instead of kind of, them selling it to some of their other partners. They'll obviously give you a warning saying, hey, you might not get as much exposure, you might not get as much reach, but also remember that's okay too, because we're not always concerned about the number of people seeing this. We also want to make sure that's the right people seeing this. And so some of these you can actually force the system a little bit to be able to kind of, obviously do what you want it to do, which is the better ROI. Also, as we go about, even with reporting, with being able to actually run ads, you can start to target different devices. So depending on what your business is, depending on, again, how people and potentially engage with your website, this might be something you want to look at on Google Analytics if you've had that platform kind of going for a while. But what we want to look at when it comes to devices is you may want to favor one device or another, or maybe you want to turn one off for some reason too. It's just something to know that you can actually control this, or at least communicate or influence to Google which device you're going to want better and what you're going to value from that as well. Also, a super important one is location. So this is obviously where your ads are going to show up. So there's actually two different settings in location. One is you can say, so if we did maybe the Twin Cities, maybe we picked Minneapolis and we did 30 miles around, Minneapolis. We picked an address or we picked a zip code, we dropped a pin and we did it. We could do something like that. You could also pick certain cities. You could also pick certain zip codes. Pretty much anything that you could search for on Google Maps, you can essentially kind of communicate from a location level to Google. But now here's kind of the caveat with it too, is you have two different options. One is you can say, hey, Google, I only want my ads to show up to someone that's physically inside whatever I tell you. So like, again, let's go back to that 30 miles around Minneapolis example. I only want my ad to show up if someone's searching for something in that, again, actual area. Or you can then also allow Google, you can add an add-on to it, so to speak, where that if hypothetically someone was in Duluth, but they were typing in Minneapolis auto body shop, maybe they're looking for their parents, maybe they're coming down to the cities, you could then essentially add that add-on and say, well, hey, they don't necessarily physically have to be in the location, but they have to be searching for inside that location. And Google uses that, does that by what they're searching for. Obviously, GPS is the main one. So a lot of times, if you want my recommendation, I recommend doing the one with the add-on, because like I said, you might have someone outside of your GPS area that's just looking for inside, if it's on a road trip or whatever. So as long as that triggers there, which Google knows, then you can kind of have that. But again, it is nice that you can control all of that. You can control all of the different types of locations. Budget. So the one thing to know with budget is we all think of budgets normally as a monthly budget. So, but the thing you have to remember though is within Google, Google displays and uses your budget from a daily perspective. So whatever your monthly budget is, you're going to have to divide it by 30 and do it. Now, a recommended ad budget is usually to kind of begin with is around the $500 to $1,000 kind of mark. Now, again, that doesn't mean you can't go lower than that. The one thing you just have to realize, and we'll kind of get into this as we go into the presentation, I'll remind you of this as well, is that, again, when you're taking that, $500 and we divide it by 30, then we get our daily ad budget number. So for this example, 500 divided by 30 is 1666. That means we have $16.66 of that we're telling Google that they can spend, and that we obviously are allowing to spend per day. Google did this way back in the day. You could have had a monthly budget. The problem was that they would eat up your budget by the 14th of the month, and for the next 16 days, you were kind of SOL until the next month kind of did. So they do the daily budget. But here's the thing is if you don't have enough daily budget, you can see those numbers, if they get too small, what happens is this is an average cost per click. Now, again, this is going to range because it can be way higher, it can be way less, but an average cost per click is about $2 to $4. So if you think about that 1666 example with $500 is, if we're at the higher end of that, that could be approximately 4 to 6, let's just call it as an average, 4 to 6 clicks per day. Well, that at least is giving us some healthy numbers. Well, if you knock that down to 250, or we knock that down even further, those numbers are going, you might get into a spot where you're barely getting 1 or 2 click per day. Obviously, if we don't have enough meat on the bone, so to speak, we just kind of spin our tires. That's why you're going to sometimes have to look at, if we're going to do Google ads, we kind of have to at least, again, a lot of times we recommend to people, you got to try and start at that $500 a month kind of mark. You can potentially, like I said, you can go lower if you absolutely don't have that. It's just being cognizant, and we're going to have to look at our cost per clicks and realize we have to make some concessions there while that starts to get up. And eventually there at least is going to be a minimum for everybody's account. And a lot of times it's based off of your cost per click. So that's why I can't tell you exactly what it is, but the recommended would be $500 to $1,000 ad budget. Also, bid strategy. So this is one of those where, do you want to control it, or do you want Google to essentially control it? So what essentially can happen is you can say, hey, for every single keyword that I have, I'm going to go in and manually say the maximum cost per click that I want to kind of allow. Or you can say, hey, Google, I'm going to let you do this, but here's a max of what I'm looking to kind of spend. A lot of times people kind of let Google do that, but it depends on how hands-on you want to be. You obviously have to be careful when you give Google kind of control over it, because they could be spending a cost per click that you wouldn't want to do, and that you again, would maybe want to kind of backtrack from. So this is going to go into another thing that we're going to talk about throughout the presentation, and you're going to hear me talk about a couple times, is AdWords is not set it and forget it. If you're looking to set it and forget it, you are going to waste money, and you honestly most likely are going to be disappointed. AdWords is one of those programs, or probably one of the higher technical, again, and just is going to take the resources to be able to kind of manage this. And so with that is just understanding some of the bid strategy, and even knowing that whichever way you go with bid strategy, knowing that you're going to have to, again, pay attention to this. If this is a couple times, again, a week, daily, again, like at a minimum, you should be looking at your ads accounts and managing it 1 to 2 times per week. If you're doing it less than that and once a month or whatever, like I said, it is going to be a struggle, and you most likely are going to get frustrated and think that the system doesn't work, when in fact, it's just not, you're not putting in the amount of effort, or you're not putting your resources into the right kind of place, which obviously, hopefully this presentation will even help with understanding where those are at and kind of getting you on the right path. And last but not least, another thing to kind of consider is ad times. So you can actually say, hey, I only want to run my ads from 9 to 5. This obviously is going to be different for every business, but a lot of times local, mom and pop, shops, if you have brick and mortar and stuff like that, usually we see them kind of, running it more to 9 to 5 or extended business hours. I have like a client that does, like, for instance, like junk removal and things like that. He runs his ads all the time, and he actually gets quite a bit of hits at 11 o'clock at night, midnight, when someone's just, sitting on the couch or kind of thinking about what they want to do this weekend or get rid of do the spring cleaning and kind of do it. So again, you kind of have to look at some of that kind of stuff, or you can play around with it. What's nice is any of these things that we talked about here today, you can go back and change. So you have control over that. And some of these, even like the ad times, the devices, even the locations and stuff like that, you might want to check out and utilize your Google Analytics to start to kind of help you make some of those decisions. Because on Google Analytics, you should be able to see, as long as you had it set up and it's running, to be where, obviously the time of day people are coming from, the device that people are using to access your site, the location that they're doing. You'll be able to see all of that information on Google Analytics, and hopefully that will, help you make some of these decisions. Okay, so once we get our account set up and say, okay, hey, we've got a Skol Marketing, again, Google Ads account. Now let's actually start setting this up so we can actually run ads. So here is how it kind of, again, how the whole thing kind of goes. We set up our account, which is, we have one account, that's pretty much all you're going to need. But then it kind of goes down to, then we have 4 different components, and those are going to be campaigns, ad groups, ads, and keywords. And you can see kind of how they're formulated there is you can have different campaigns, but then you can have also different ad groups. Those are going to be underneath your campaigns. And those ad groups are going to be a collection of ads and keywords. So you're always only going to have one ad group underneath the campaign, or just, again, one arm like you see there, but then you can have multiple ads and multiple keywords underneath that. So if you had, for instance, if you had 5 ad groups under a campaign, you would have 5 circles. If you had 10 ads underneath one of those, again, circles, you still only have, again, 5 circles. So the ads is as many ads as if you want, or as many keywords as you want, and we'll get into their highly recommended area, but those are just going to be underneath the circle of ad groups. Really, one important thing too is to know that campaign is campaign at the campaign level. Anything below that, so all of your ad groups, ads, and keywords are going to eat at the same budget. So if you want to start to say, hey, I only want a certain budget to go here, and I only want a certain budget to go here, and actually start divvying that up, you most likely are going to have to create different campaigns and have those on there so you can communicate that to Google. Now you might be asking, okay, Ben, well, this is great. Now, what are some examples of how I would actually set this up? And so here's an example on the right to kind of start to give you an idea of what this is going to look like. So if I am Ben's Furniture Store, again, I have my furniture store, and that's the account level. Again, I have my account, I have Ben's Furniture Store. Well, now the different campaigns might be, okay, I'm going to have a campaign for tables. I'm going to have a campaign for beds. So I have different budgets. Maybe I have different locations. Maybe I have some of those different parameters that we kind of set. We're going to be able to kind of change some of those per, again, some of the different campaigns. But so I'm going to say, I'm going to have one for tables, one for beds. Well, now underneath tables, obviously there might be different types of tables that I'm setting, or excuse me, that I'm selling. That's going to be different types of ad groups. So these are going to be, your campaign is your main type of service. And then ad groups are most likely your different types of demographics or specific products or services that would be nested underneath. Example here, coffee tables and bedside tables. Obviously, those are going to be 2 different types of people. It could be the same person, but I just mean like in that moment when they're searching, somebody that wants a coffee table isn't most likely looking for a bedside table, and vice versa. Same thing with beds. If I'm looking for a sofa bed or a king size bed, that's a completely separate thing. Here's usually a really good rule of thumb when you're talking about Google AdWords. The more specific you can break down your campaign into campaigns, or excuse me, account into campaigns, ad groups, ads, and keywords, the more successful you're going to be. It's just a really good rule of thumb. So the more specific you can be across your account, it's going to, again, benefit you. So, when you set all this up, it's mainly kind of one and done just from setting it up. You're going to then be into the, the ad groups. You're going to be into the ads. You might be adding more ad groups as we go on. But this hierarchy of kind of building it, a lot of times the initial kind of stuff is done at the beginning. And then we're going to be kind of managing it. We might pause some ad groups. We might add some more. For instance, if I decided to add, if I've got sofa beds, king size bed, maybe, again, I'm looking for a bunk bed, maybe I decide to add another bunk bed type of ad group. So again, the more specific you can be, overall, the better the account is most likely going to perform. Okay, so now getting into Google Ads. So again, remembering, oops, sorry here. So remembering that, so this is kind of the campaign and ad group. We've got those kind of set up. Really, it's a matter of, okay, we've got the tables, we've got the coffee tables, we've got the bedside tables. Now it's pretty much blank underneath those. Now this is where kind of the nitty gritty and the rubber hits the road of now filling out your actual campaign. And this is where we're going to essentially create what people are going to see when they're searching on Google. So it's important to realize that, we want different variations and we want different numbers of ads. So you can technically, though, have unlimited ads per ad group. Now, usually a good rule of thumb is we always like to say it's a good, again, practice or good, just status quo to have 3 ads per ad group. So again, going back to coffee side tables, I would have 3 different types of ads. Now we're going to get into how this kind of works, but the idea is that you're just using different words or different phrases to create these different variations of these, again, ads. And so, because what we're going to be kind of testing is we're using different words, we're using different call to actions, we're using different keywords in these kind of ads to kind of create them. We want to see what's working with people and what is going to connect. This also helps Google, which ultimately then helps you, is if you give them more options to choose from. Google wants you to succeed because obviously the more you're successful, the more you're going to spend or the longer you're going to go, so they make more money. But here's the thing is it helps Google when they have more type of headlines, descriptions, which again, we're going to get into, more different types of ad variations to choose from, because they can even start doing some A/B testing. They can start seeing that when someone types in a certain phrase, they think because of their algorithm and because of what they've done previously, that they think that this ad is going to be again, a better solution for them than what. So again, you get to kind of, maybe be able to play off of that a little bit. We're going to be able to see what they're, when you create these ads, you're going to actually have a preview of what they'll look like on mobile, what they'll look like on desktop. Again, you're going to have all these different kind of variations of them. And that's what we want, to put in as much information as possible. To know, some people don't realize this, but every time you do an ad, it actually has to go through an approval process. It's quasi-automatic by Google, but also they do even have manual checks of some things. Now, just like sometimes at the airport, it's just sometimes random that they kind of manually do it. So it could take an hour, to have your ads approved. It could be up to 24 hours. It's usually pretty fast. Again, going back to Google wants to get you going as fast as possible, because obviously that's as fast as you can spend money, which that's how they make money. And again, quality score. This is going to make a little bit more sense as we get into, we're going to get into actually writing an ad here, but quality score is essentially measuring how connected is your ad to what someone is searching, as well as the destination, the landing page. That is a really key thing here is, you want to be as specific with your landing page as possible. And so before we get into this, I just want to kind of touch on that just a little bit. So when you're building a landing page or you're sending somebody from an ad to a certain page on your site, remember the rule of thumb. The more specific we can be on Google Ads, more often than not, it's going to be the best. So, again, a really good rule of thumb is don't send people to your homepage. Because again, your homepage, if I were to run ads, let's say on, social media marketing that Skol Marketing can offer a local business, I can send them to the homepage, but my homepage is talking about all my services, which again, they'll eventually kind of maybe find their way. But here's the thing is, if I can send them directly to my social media marketing page or social media management page, then I'm essentially doing one less step that they have to do. This also helps Google because then Google's analyzing the content of the page that you're sending them to, and then comparing that to the ad text and the keywords that you're using. The more close that you can get that connected, the higher your quality score is, which again is like having a relationship with Google. So again, that's going to benefit you. So just kind of remember that again, you want to try to send them to the most specific page possible. If you don't have a page, well, this is a perfect time to create one, because it will also help you if you create another page on your site. It most likely will help you with SEO as well. But when we actually are writing ads, here's a couple things to kind of know about. So the first is understanding character, headline, and description limits. So if I go back here just real quick, you can kind of see the right-hand side here. Every headline has a 30-character limit. Every description has a 90. Every path has a 15. How that breaks down or how that looks is the bottom left-hand screenshot here is an example of what you'll see if you decide to start, again, creating ads. So at the top, you have your final URL, which is, again, that's going to be your landing page of where you're sending someone. You can see this example is that they're sending them specifically to the pavement, parking lot, and striping page. They're not just sending them to the home page, they're sending them to a very specific service page. The thing is, we talked about before, is doing different ads and different variations, is that you are going to get 3 different headlines and 2 different descriptions. It's important to know this is Google is going to prioritize your headline 1, then move to headline 2, then move to headline 3, and same with description. They're going to prioritize your description 1, but then also move down to description 2. What this is an opportunity is, again, you're giving Google more information that they can experiment with, saying, okay, hey, for this ad, we're going to use headline 1 and 3 with description 2. And this ad, we're going to use headline 2 with description 1. They're going to kind of play around with that. Also, knowing that character limits on mobile compared to desktop is also going to play into this. If you want to make sure something is shown to every single user, no matter the device, then you better have that in headline 1 and description 1. If you want to play around with some of the other stuff and it may not be as pertinent, then that's when we can add things to headline 2, headline 3, and description 2. So again, you just want to make sure that we're kind of playing around with that. Also, just realizing the limits that we have with the 30 characters, that goes really fast. Again, it's a character, not a letter. So every space, letter, or punctuation is going to be that. Also know that if you try things like using emojis or dollar signs or all caps, it'll automatically get flagged. That goes back to, again, that approval process. You can't do that, so you have to be as natural as possible. Now, again, some companies use all caps, like for instance, Skol here. Skol uses all caps, and sometimes it might go through. Sometimes it might get flagged. You might have to appeal it. So if you have a name or an organization that has all caps, you're just going to have to see how it goes. Google's pretty good about it, but it can get frustrating at times, but it's kind of the way it goes. Also, another really trick is anytime you're writing an ad, even if it's in a description or a headline or a display path, which again, I'll get into in just a second, is that every time you do a word, you want to try to capitalize the first letter. So you can kind of see here, parking lot cleaning as the headline 1 has the P, L, and C all capitalized. That's a huge thing because studies have actually shown that when you do it this way, it actually reads better and more clearly and actually can draw more attention from a user's perspective and a psychological standpoint. So again, just a little kind of tip there that if you do it like that, it can actually perform better. Another thing you want to make sure of is, again, in a logical sense and strategic sense, that we add keywords into our ad. This one, for instance, parking lot striping. What's kind of nice is if you're just describing or writing, phrases or call to actions, you most likely are going to be able to pull in, again, just naturally keywords into it. But one thing you might want to do is if you're just running an ad for Minneapolis or Minnesota, maybe you add an MN in there, or maybe you add local in there, or locally owned, or, again, some of those types of things. Some of those things that might still be kind of keywords, or at least, again, related to your business, to your services, and to your keywords and phrases that you're looking to kind of utilize. Also, you want to try to make sure that every description, at least, again, when you create an ad or every ad in general, has a call to action. Call now, again, sign up for a demo. You can try kind of play around with it, but it's really good. And studies have shown if we have a call to action, it's better, and it can kind of lead people to, again, clicking on your ads more and getting more benefit. A display URL is what we kind of see in the middle of this screenshot. Really what this display URL is used for is purely marketing sense. So this is what the URL is going to show below your kind of your headline when your ad shows up. So for instance, like this one, if it was parking lot cleaning was kind of the headline of the ad. Well, right below it, it's going to show the display path or the display URL. Again, I need to reiterate that this is just for marketing purposes. This page or this URL does not exist in this example and most likely will not exist in your realm as well. But this is a perfect way for you to add another 1, 2, or 3 type of keywords into this and help a user just understand the type of page that they're going to be going to. So it's purely marketing purposes. It's purely an opportunity for you to actually put in another 1 or 2 keywords. So the example down here is parking lot / cleaning. As you can see from the final URL at the top of that screenshot, that page does not exist. If you were to go to twincitysweeping.com/parking-lot/cleaning, you would get a 404. But with the ads, is this allows us to actually on the ad show something that's a lot cleaner than what the URL is and add a couple extra keywords. And last but not least is you will be able to kind of see and play around with different ad versions. So the responsive search ad is kind of what we're building here. As well as you could just do a call ad. So if you want to just target people obviously on a mobile device, you can kind of do that. And then last but not least is a dynamic search ad. So what you can essentially do here if you want to play around with it is this is putting a little bit more control into Google's hand, but it's essentially saying that when someone searches for something, they're going to automatically take those keywords and put them into your ad. So they can be beneficial. It gets into, when we get in here in a second, how well you set up your keywords. But all three of these can be really beneficial. And I actually encourage you to kind of play around with all of them, because the reason that they're there is because they do have a benefit. But there are different versions. But again, it goes back to the same type of, again, core strategy that we're talking about here can be applicable to all of them. Or even going back to like AdWords Express and those types of ads that we kind of even talked about. These types of things that we're discussing, even though they're very pertinent right now to AdWords that, that we're talking about here. And every screenshot may look a little bit different in option, but a lot of the same strategies that we're talking about can be applicable to those as well. Okay, keywords. So a couple things with keywords to know is that technically, again, you can have unlimited amount of keywords per ad group. Again, if you remember, ad groups are going to have potentially your 3 different types of ads, and then we're going to have all of the keywords all within that ad group. But it is a good thing, or again, kind of good rule of thumb, is to try to keep your keywords to approximately 15 to 20. When you get higher than 20, what a lot of times we end up seeing, or you end up like looking at with your account, is you might want to break that off and maybe make it its own ad group if you're getting that many keywords. If you have 50 different keywords for one ad group for coffee tables, most likely either again, we can be better, we can have a better ROI by having some less and being more specific. Again, remember again that, being more specific, good rule of thumb within Google AdWords is better than being vague, or bigger is not always better here. But also most likely, again, you might be able to make some type of other ad campaign that is related that could even perform better on its own instead of lumping them together. Also, what's important is this is where the cost of your cost per click is going to be designated. It's at the keyword level and it's determined by competition. So I'll give you another example with a client, is that client that does emergency ice dam removal that I mentioned earlier. When they run ads for that service here in Minneapolis, they are anywhere from 2 to 4 times as expensive for the exact same amount of ads if you were to run them in Chicago, because there's more competition here. So this is where, when I was talking about, designating your budget, looking at that, looking at the amount that we're spending per keyword, you might, and you honestly most likely will, and almost every time will, find keywords that maybe you're spending twice as much, but you're maybe looking at it going like, well, why would I spend twice as much here when this other word is just as related, but it's not, again, as competitive, because not everybody's running the same ads on this maybe more specific keyword. And I can now get 2 or 3 clicks for every one over here. So those are the types of things that we have to kind of look out for when it comes to keywords. The other thing that's super important with keywords is called match type. And this graph over here in this chart essentially explains what match type is. So a lot of times when people get going with AdWords is they just start typing in kind of the keywords and doing a comma or doing a space and just have a list of keywords and go. The problem with that is sometimes that can be too general and you're giving Google too much control there. So what we have is we actually have 4 different types of match types, and then 1 being a negative, which is technically kind of related, but also separate. We'll get into that here in a second. So the 4 main type of, again, match types are going to be broad match, modifier, phrase match, and exact match. So a couple examples here. If I'm selling women's hats, you can see if I do broad match, that it's any type of synonym, related search, or relevant variation. This may work for you, but you can most likely see that you're going to probably get, again, search results, and your ads are probably going to be searching or going to be showing up for something that most likely is not related. Now you can do that here, but you're going to have to pay more attention to negative keywords, which we'll get into in a second. The ones that are more widely used is the one that we use the most is a lot of times broad match modifier. This is a little bit more restrictive, but still open up enough. But you can kind of see here that it must contain the modified term in any order. So this one, if I do women's hats, it could be woman's hats. It could be hats for woman, women, it can be those types of things. So it doesn't have to be exactly in the same order, but it's a little bit more, now there's not as much synonyms and things like that, and it's not as broad. Phrase match is pretty much what you see there has to be inside a search phrase somewhere. So if I needed women's hats and I wanted to do a phrase match, I could do buy women's hats or women's hats for sale or cheap women's hats. Again, words can go in front, words can go at the end, but that phrase has to be somewhere in that search. And then last but not least is exact match. Exactly what you put in those brackets has to be searched, and that's the only time your keyword will show up. So again, you might want to play around with this, and you might, a lot of times the most successful campaigns kind of have a little bit of blend of all of these. But then it gets into the last one, which is one of the most significant kind of processes or management that you're going to be doing on your account is called negative keywords. What negative keywords are, either if you see that your ads are showing up for a keyword that you don't want to, or right away, like for instance, this example down here with baseball, you can put in these negative keywords. This means that anytime you put in a keyword, anytime someone types in a phrase that has that word in it, anywhere in that search phrase, it's not going to show your ad. So like here would be baseball. Even if someone said women's baseball hats, if someone said, again, baseball caps for women, anything, if it has baseball, these ads are not going to show. Again, so there's probably all these different types of, again, key terms. This is where a lot of times even competitors, sometimes you'll see where people are searching for competitors and your ads might be showing up. That's a whole other strategy, but maybe you want that, maybe you don't. But all of us are going to have key terms that are somewhat related, but you can see because of what they're searching for, it's probably like, I can spend my money better elsewhere. So you want to go ahead and put these negative keywords that you already know in there. But one of the key components is, as you're managing your account on a daily, semi-daily, weekly basis, you want to be seeing what people are searching for to find your ads, and then making sure that you tell Google, like, okay, hey, number 6, 4, and 2, I do not want them showing up again. I don't want to pay for that again because that's not a search term. That's one of the most significant ways that you can manage your account. So anytime you put in keywords here, it goes through, almost like another mini kind of approval process. It just kind of goes through it. Then they're activated, and then they kind of, again, launch. Also, it's most likely super important for you to maybe do some keyword research. Now, what's kind of nice is Google has a free keyword research tool called the Keyword Planner tool within Google Ads that you can actually run these ads and you can kind of do this stuff. Otherwise, you can use things like Moz or SEMrush. You can use some more paid programs if you want to do this. It's just saying that, you can start with just throwing things out there. But I'll go back to it again. The more specific, the more work you usually put in is the better you're going to get kind of out of it. So keyword research can be very critical in that instance. Okay, to kind of wrap this up a little bit, I know we're kind of butting up here on time, and so I want to leave some options or some time for questions. But the last thing to kind of look at too is what's called ad extensions. So these ad extensions are almost like little add-ons to what you can put onto your ad. And how you essentially kind of determine them is, what is your goal? So like, for instance, here, if your goal is to get customers to buy from your business location, then the location extension is really good because it will put your address, it'll link to Google, and someone on a mobile device or even a computer can be able to see it. You might want to see an affiliate location extension to see, okay, hey, my products are actually in these other locations that you can go buy. Or maybe even a call out extension where you're essentially just buying more characters, free delivery, 24/7 customer support. So those, again, we can start to add these to them. If you want customers to contact you directly, this one can be super value, that if your ad is so good to that consumer that you actually don't even need them to, or they don't need to click on it to actually be sold further onto your, again, site. And that's a huge win-win. Well, you can add that option with the call extension. So if someone's, on a mobile device and they pull up your phone and they see it and go, oh yeah, Ravina Lawn Service, that sounds good to me. I don't even need to go into it. I'm just going to call them. They can call you directly from the ad. This can be a super powerful one, and Google tracks that, so you can actually see those calls and everything like that as too. Another one is if you, again, if your goal is to get customers to convert on your website, this is a very popular one. We can do site link extensions. This is essentially giving people not only the page that you want them to go to, but maybe some other, again, links that might be pertinent to them. Maybe it's the overall shop page or the overall service page. You just give some people some different options on your site to kind of choose from. Again, the call out extension, we can buy more characters to add more to our ad. Also, the structured snippet extension. We can showcase different types of information that, again, users might, find valuable. We can maybe say the product or service category and things, again, and being able to kind of just put more information about those products or services on there. And last but not least is price extension. You may be able to want to just say, hey, this is what the price is for this service. This is what the price is for that product that you're running an ad on. And you can actually have that displayed right there. So with that said, I know this is a ton to go through, but I hope that this kind of breaks down when you're getting into Google Ads of what you're essentially kind of looking at. We're looking at that we have SEM, search engine marketing, all of the different types of things that we can do, but looking at that account structure, that we have the account, then the campaigns, then the ad groups, ads, and keywords all together. Make sure, remember when we're writing those ads that we have the capitalization trick, that we're following those different, again, character limits, that we're giving Google as much information as possible. The more specific we can be, the more information we give Google, the more it's going to benefit us. And also looking at those ad extensions, monitoring and managing those keywords. I know this is a lot. And honestly, this is what kind of, again, happens with AdWords is just knowing what you're kind of getting into with this and knowing that it is a lot of work, but it can be super beneficial for you. And that's why, like I said at the beginning, is maybe you do want to start with AdWords Express. Maybe you do, maybe looking at this, you decide, hey, I'm in e-commerce. I'm going to go straight to Google Shopping. All of those different things that we kind of talked about, but those strategies that we talked about with classic ads are going to resonate to the other ones. So with that said, I want to be cognizant of everyone's time here, but I do want to open it up for questions for those people that are here still with us and to see if you guys, again, have anything for me going forward. Okay, so I'm just going to look at some of the questions that did come in. Please continue to get them in there. So one question was, how would you say is the best way to retarget without coming across as creepy or intrusive? So to be honest with you, some people just find retargeting and remarketing a little creepy to begin with. So again, like what a lot of times I tell people is, to do a very simple type of image with a very simple type of reminder. Sometimes when you get so specific, especially with shopping and it's the specific product, that's when sometimes people can be kind of creeped out or there. But the other thing with it is it does work too. It does, again, like me, even as a marketer, I get on it too. Like I'll be on, again, debating on a couple new Viking shirts. And sure enough, 2 days later, it's reminding me for that shirt. And I'm like, dang it. Okay, I'm going to click on it. So you do have to kind of balance it. But I would say, honestly, don't worry so much about being creepy and intrusive. I know it's something we obviously want to be cognizant about, but to be fully transparent, it's becoming more and more just, again, the norm. And this can really benefit you. So another question is, how is the cost per click calculated? So again, this is off of competition. So like I was saying before, it's going to be at the keyword level, but in the average cost per click normally is $2 to $4. But it can, again, we've seen cost per clicks go up to $25. I've seen cost per clicks be at 17 cents. Again, so you can, again, see everything, again, anything there, but they are going to be calculated at the keyword level, and it's going to be predicated on competition and location. So where do you go for your Google business page to even set up Google Ads? That's a great question. So just at, again, you can go to, what I always tell people is if you ever need to know where to go for a Google product, just Google it. So you could just kind of Google Ads or Google AdWords, and it's going to take you there. Otherwise, just, again, AdWords.com. They kind of keep changing some of the URLs, but pretty much AdWords.com will just get you there. Or if you just Google AdWords, or excuse me, Google Ads, it'll take you right there as well. Okay, sorry, I'm just looking at over the questions. So last one here. If you have any more questions, please get them in. But the last one I have here is from Pat. And can you do retargeting without doing one of the other marketing? Display ads, shopping ads, YouTube. So in a sense, yes. So you can just do, again, retargeting or remarketing ads. You don't have to necessarily do the, the ads. You're technically doing display ads because you're using the same network. But again, you can just say, I'm only going to show these. I'm not doing the billboard type of display ads. I'm only doing retargeting / remarketing. And I'm only going to do it when people do, when you have to set those parameters or those triggers when they're on your website. But yes, Pat, you can absolutely just do retargeting or remarketing with that. You don't have to do the other ones. I'm just saying that if you do the other ones, this can be a super valuable thing to kind of layer kind of on top of it or around your campaign to really, again, just, improve that so much. Another question is it bad to use the same keyword for different ads? In general, yes, there might be some carryover, but again, it goes back to you want to be as specific as possible. Otherwise, there can be some cannibalization between some of the ads or some conflicting of what Google would want to kind of see. Now, again, you kind of have to play around with this. Again, there are some instances where it does work, but just in general, yes, you want to try to keep those keywords separate for each ad group as much as possible. But that's also where some of those modifiers can actually come in handy as well. Perfect. Well, if nobody has any other questions, a couple things I just want to say is I want to say thank you guys for tuning in today. I hope you guys took away something. Again, I know that sometimes this is like drinking through a fire hose. And so I hope that you guys can, again, rewatch this. You can take the PDF that we're going to, again, be able to send you. Also know that we do offer free consultations. These aren't sales pitches. If you want to talk about Skol marketing services, that's awesome. We can, schedule a time for that. But if you, I have people that come up to me and say, hey, Ben, can you just check my ads? Can you just check that I had this set up correctly? Or, hey, this is specifically for me. What would you recommend? Because obviously I'm trying to teach to all you guys and there's going to be different, intricacies for everyone. So if you want to take advantage of that, feel free to literally just reach out. Tell, again, reach out, say, hey, we'd love a free consultation. You're really just getting free time from me. That it's another way that we kind of give back. Again, I know that some of these are heady subjects and we just need a little bit more help along the way. So feel free to reach out, either call or send an email. Also, I encourage you guys to check out our future workshops. You can see our URL at the bottom of the screen there. We have some more coming up with Score. We have some other ones that we're putting on with other organizations. And I also want to remind you that the majority of the workshops, not everyone, but the majority of them, we actually do record and put on our YouTube channel. So I encourage you to check out our YouTube channel. You can just, again, Google it or just search on YouTube for it. You can find it on our website too. But if you check out our YouTube channel, you can see some of our previous workshops as well. So with that said, I want to say thank you guys again for coming. You guys have a great day and Skol.
Thanks again, Ben. You have a great afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining.